Okay. Good evening. I would welcome you to the January 23rd, 2018 meeting of the Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen, but I can't open the meeting yet because we don't have a quorum, so stay tuned. We're just awaiting for somebody to arrive. Thank you.
How's the travel? How's the weather for you coming up?
Not bad.
That is for you. That's from Mary Ann, the clerk's office. It's a form you're gonna fill out.
What, this here?
No, the other one to your right.
Oh, thank
She
you.
left a
There's a
note on
statement
it.
here that you either did or did not conduct any campaign activity this year.
Yeah, you
Oh,
Last year
yeah,
you
yeah,
did
yeah,
not, I assume, because-
I did not.
You gotta file that.
I don't know.
Breaking the place already?
Nah,
Yeah, what the hell?
Okay, welcome back. Let's see, can we have a roll call, please?
Present is Selectman Scasioto, Selectman Slavin, Selectman Titlebaum, and Town Administrator Derek Sullivan.
Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Sullivan.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Salute.
Okay, announcements, Selectman Scasiotti.
Nothing, thing. All set.
Thanks.
We don't have much today for me. We have lost a couple of community people again, which seems to be constant. Larry Gaines, who was very much involved with the Council on Aging and the Friends of the Elderly, passed away. Larry died on January 19th, basically from New York. He spent quite a bit of time in town doing things, again, like I say, for the council, for the St. Margaret's Church in Buzzards Bay. And Kathleen Morris, I think the wake was today, and very well known through the town. She was involved in the communities. I would see her always at the polls of the town of Wareham, member of the Cape Verdean Festival Committee, volunteer for the Christa Baptiste Patterson Scholarship Committee, longtime communicator of the St. Mary's Church in Onset. So I'd ask for a moment of silence for both of these outstanding citizens. Thank you.
Any other announcements?
I don't have anything today.
Okay. Citizens' comments?
There's no citizens.
Well, yes, there is one, but he's media, so he keeps quiet. So, okay, thanks for the endorsement. It's too bad nobody's here to hear it. Let's see, appointments, reappointments, interviews. We have Community Events Committee, Gene Connaughton.
Yes. I've gone through all the paperwork that's here. The committee sent their approval for Jean. Jean will not be here today. She's still recovering from the fall on ice like a whole bunch of people did a while back, and she actually attended the meeting of the CEC last night to observe and stuff. So I would like to make a motion to appoint Gene Connaughton, 185 Great Neck Road, Wareham, Mass., to the Community Events Committee for a term to expire no later than June 30th, 2020.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Thank you, Mrs. Connaughton, for stepping up, providing service to the town once again. No licenses and permits. We have to talk about, I'm going to skip down past A, wait for Selectman Tropiano to hopefully get here before we close the meeting out. Rate we're going, he might not. Liaison reassignments, I just put this on here because I am going to try to figure out what we're going to do with a couple of Judy's liaison assignments.
Yeah, I was looking at that. I know Judy was heavily involved with the cemetery commission. They expressed interest in having someone there.
Right.
The school committee, you may, if you're comfortable, take that because I have 2 or 3 things on a Wednesday.
Yep.
I'd like to, at this time, step down from the planning board, though. I've been on the planning board almost 7 years, and now 6 years as the representative. And I think it's time that someone else steps in. Tony, I think you're on the ZBA as a representative. Would you like to consider switching? You could go if you want. I'm just saying, just for changes.
Yeah, we can take this up.
All right, but I'd like.
Yeah, let him think about it. I mean,
Yeah,
it is a commitment.
But I'd like to.
That's a busy board.
No, it's a busy board, but you do something for a long period of time, you kind of stale at it.
Yep.
I think it'd be a good idea to switch around.
Okay.
But I would take.
I'll consider that, but remember that these decisions are
Yeah, no, like I say, I think I can do community
one of the few
events.
things that's unilaterally mine.
Yeah. And, I'm trying to think what else she had. Council on Aging, I don't
Yeah,
have-
well, that's, I just wanted to bring it up tonight. Next week, we can go through the list, and
Mhm.
I can harass the 3 of you with.
Yeah, I'm more
with
than
these
happy to
things.
move some stuff around, though.
Discussion and possible votes to put articles on town meeting warrant. We don't have any articles before us, but this is going to be recurring right until the warrant closes.
We're
When does the warrant close now? What's the date?
Jeez, I keep forgetting.
February 5th, February 8th. It's in
I
the-
think it's the 5th for town submitted articles and the 8th for petition articles.
It's coming up relatively quickly for the annual.
Yeah, so we're going to have to, the next couple of weeks, we're going to, I would say the 30th. I think, to the extent possible, I'd like to devote most of the meeting to getting the annual, just the routine articles on.
Yeah, you'll have
We'll have to do placeholders for some things.
Yep, you'll have the budget, WPCF budget, the EMS budget, a bunch of the annuals
Yeah,
that we
Upper
have.
Cape, blah,
Yeah,
blah, 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 blah.
Upper
So,
Cape, the vote, setting the compensation of elected officials.
yeah,
stuff.
so the first 10 hardly ever change anyway, so we'll get that stuff on there. I did speak, and I'm sure you'll speak to it during the liaison report, but there are going to be multiple articles coming forward at the request of the planning board.
Mhm.
So those will probably, they're going to require placeholders because I don't believe they're doing public hearings until after the warrant closes.
No, that'd be the 12th, if I remember it.
Right. That's what Director Buckland told me, was they would do those on the 12th. So there will be placeholders for those. Community preservation, we'll have to wait for their articles to come in. Any bylaw changes we want to look at?
Yeah, we have one. We're going to have to try and get a determination as best we can. At this past weekend with the MMA, there was major discussions about the retail marijuana and the project, et cetera. And there was concern, earlier in the year that you had to have your bylaw change in by April 1st,
Yep.
because that's when they start taking applications for licenses. I picked up a pretty extensive pamphlet that was given out at the event, and there's some conflicting pieces because it says that it has to be a host agreement, but if there's a moratorium, how do you generate a host agreement? And also in there, it said that basically they would like to see the moratoriums really end by May 31st, which means June 1st. By June 1st, you should have all your zoning changes done. So it's really not very clear. So I asked Mr. Bowen last night and again this morning, going through everything, if he could go and contact the Assistant District Attorney, Margaret Healy, who's in charge of, as far
Be
as
the
the state.
Assistant AG,
Yeah.
yeah.
What did I say, attorney?
District Attorney.
Oh, sorry. Senior moment people.
That's who'll come see us if we illegally license these
Yeah,
places.
if we do bad things. But basically to ask for more clarification, because the initial response was that the moratorium may or may not be effective. And now the question is, if what was presented this past weekend kind of changes stuff, and we'll get into it later on in the meeting, but there's a major amount of information now with the retail marijuana.
There is. My inclination, I've spoken with town council and also the town moderator, my inclination is to suggest that where it appears that somebody might be able to come in and apply for a license effective April 1st, and if we don't have any zoning in place by then, or limits on the number of facilities, we could be vulnerable to having these places in places we don't want them to be. So my inclination would be to call a separate special town meeting just to deal with probably 3 articles. One would be a limit on the number of retail marijuana operations. The second would be to set the zones where they would be allowed, and of course not allowed in the others. And the third would be to do away with the moratorium, because with the first 2 in place, of course, you don't need the moratorium there. And I think the moratorium runs out at the end of June this year, our moratorium.
Yes.
And under the latest information I have, they all end at the end of the year.
December 31st period.
So I think this is something important enough to actually have its own special town meeting. And with the 0 quorum requirement, we can certainly do that.
Yeah.
So that's my inclination. Of course, the board has to vote that. I've already requested that it be on the agenda next week
Well, again,
for discussion, and then we can set the timeline then.
yeah, with the February 12th public hearing, that puts the piece in place as
It
well.
does. We'll have the input from the people in terms of what they want, where they want these things, and so forth. You know, there is, and I have to mention it, there is the possibility that you could go to town meeting and take the first step in overturning the positive vote that the town had at the ballot box to legalize
Yeah,
marijuana, and then you would have to go back in the fall
and have a
with a ballot question in the state election and overturn it then. But, you know, I think it passed about 3-1 in this town, so I really don't see that as,
It was like 60/40 or some number.
but it was fairly substantial. It was stronger than the state average.
Yeah, we were way
Oh, was
above.
it?
Oh,
Yeah.
By far, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
we were-
Yeah, people want it here.
In the county
So-
average, it was higher than the county average, too.
Yeah.
So I think we also see what Mr. Bowen comes back after speaking to the Assistant Attorney General to get a,
Yeah, I know we already had one conversation with her. I don't know if in a second.
I saw another outreach correspondence today.
You did, okay. Yeah, I don't know that one, but I did see the first one, and she suggested get your ducks in a row, and she didn't tell us what to do, but she certainly implied that you want to have your ducks in a row by April 1st, so I think that's the prudent course.
it actually said that she really wasn't sure, since she was taking the conservative approach, whether or not, because they don't know. But they've made a bunch of changes and a lot of additions over the last month and a half, because the commission just got formed like a month ago, really.
Well, I mean, to be honest, they've made such a hash of this, and not to coin a pun, but,
That's him.
yeah, well, you know, at this point, the only person who knows exactly what any of these laws mean, the way they conflict with each other, is some judge to be named later, and I'd rather not be subject to
I think we're gonna see.
figuring out on April 3rd that we should have done something on April 1st.
The other thing I'd like us to consider is that we did put in, for medicinal marijuana in the institutional zone, there was some confusion, industrial versus institutional. However, that organization that we have the host agreement with had to go through a lot of rigors and such to get into the location that they did, and they've been working with us the whole way, so something just to consider.
Oh, I know.
The restrictions on the medical are much more severe even to get that permit than is what we call recreational. The recreational has a lot lower thresholds.
Yeah, there's been, I remember some people, some scuttlebutt that we were trying to sink it, but if anybody knows us the amount of money that we're trying to get out of it through the host agreement, we've been pushing. So.
Well, just to make a comment so the public understands also, we'll do it a little later, is that any community which basically voted for it, it's very difficult to make any substantial changes. But the bottom line is, any community that did vote for it, does have it, those operations can deliver to any city or town in the state, because they have a delivery process now, which I'll explain later.
Which is, that's another thing to consider, is we could also theoretically limit the amount of grow places, but if we've limited the amount of retail to the point where, you know, the people who vote are happy with that, I would suggest that we really don't care if people grow it here, put up buildings and add to the tax base if they're selling it in other communities. That's really, why would we be concerned about that?
Yeah.
So,
Either way.
yeah, we'll come back to that next week. It's on the agenda. Continued discussion of large-scale capital needs. I did see on Facebook, believe it or not, today that I'm guessing it's the consultant that's doing this, but they've put up a poll of where people would want the new school to be,
Oh,
whether it's the town hall location or the Minot Forest location. Unsurprisingly, it was mostly parents of school-aged children who were weighing in, and I won't comment as to the results because they're readily available. Anybody can go look at them. But there's certainly one segment of the population that has a preference, and I'll just leave it at that. I don't know that we have anything else under town business. Is there any 48-hour business from anybody?
No.
No? Okay. Town administrators report?
Mr. Chairman, we've been working on the budget. Obviously, that's due by the end of this week. One correction on one of the previous meetings, I thought that the Finance Committee Chairman had asked for the budget as a whole. It'd been a revenue report. He and I met and went over some things. I guess they didn't have a quorum at the last meeting, but that's, I didn't attend, so I didn't feel too badly about that then.
Oh, you lost the moral high ground, didn't you?
Yeah, I know. So we're going through, be careful tonight. We're looking at a little bit of potential freeze with the water and such, so it can be dangerous conditions. So that's pretty much all we have. I am this Thursday touring the CMAS facility and speaking to some members there, and Municipal Maintenance Director, Mr. Menard, is coming along with me, so.
All righty. That brings us down to liaison initiative reports. Selectman Scasiotti? Nothing? Selectman Slavin? Clerk Slavin? Oh, you
Okay.
waive the title.
Doesn't matter. The planning board last night went through with Ken Buckland, our town planner, the 4 articles that they're going to basically bring forth. Of course, the marijuana, trying to, where the citing should be, the number. I think the way the law is right now written, it's 20% of your, I think liquor store outlets, which for us is
Yeah, that's the minimum you can limit it to.
yeah, it's 2.6. I don't know how you can do a 0.6 and figure that out. So we're also asking, does 0.6 mean 3 or does it mean 2?
My understanding is initially they were rounding down, but now they're rounding up.
Yeah, well,
So,
there's nothing in the latest rules that say anything either way, so we'll see. But they worked on that, took quite a while back and forth on that. There's some, I think the biggest piece really is the stretch code to become a green community. And that stretch code is a separate piece that has to be voted at a town meeting, so they voted 3-1 to bring that forward. And there was a couple other things that had to do with some of the, I think Dave Requena did a whole new section on the 1300 and 1400 in the zoning bylaws.
Yeah.
To clean all that up, so. Everything looks pretty straightforward. The hearing, I believe, is the 12th, and we should see what we get there. Zoning articles are always difficult for people because they're usually complex. So hopefully we'll have them out so people can read it and ask questions ahead of time.
I was just texting you, saying we're going to be done in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
My wife had a flat tire in Plymouth.
That's
oh my
not-
God.
I gotta
fun.
go over with my compressor, fill it with air, go over there, and then follow her back.
Okay, well,
Not the
you're
weather
technically in attendance now, so
Everything's
let the
okay.
record reflect that Selectman Tropiano wandered in at 7:20.
I love it when they point out that you're late, by how much.
Exactly.
That's my favorite part.
It is.
Okay, I'll continue. Obviously, I attended the MMA annual meeting, and the governor spoke, basically gave the pre-initial budget report that I think was done today and tomorrow. The revenue increase for the benchmark, they're projecting 3.5% growth, so therefore we should be getting a 3.5% increase in our general funds. There's increase going on as far as the school and some of the circuit breakers, but the Chapter 90 monies are going to stay at $200 million, not the 3 that we've still been looking for. The only cravat to all of that is that if the federal government decides to basically do things with Medicare, Medicaid, and some of the other programs like that, which they threatened a little while ago, the state could lose, in Massachusetts, up to $1 billion in revenue, which would be extremely a problem.
Yep.
So it could affect us all. As I say, they had a very large clinic on marijuana. It was full house plus. There was a couple of different things on municipal law. There's a few things that we need to update. I left some notes on that with Mr. Sullivan and also with Mr. Buckland. Overall, it was interesting. I think the biggest comment for everybody was that they're looking at our federal government, and the comment was, I wish they'd all grow up and stop taking their ball and going home all the time, because everybody is just trying to figure out, we can't plan, we can't do anything because nothing's happening. And it was a common theme from both days. So everybody has the same issues, we're all in the same place. And it was a nice event. There's some good information that came through it, and it definitely is worthwhile, spending time there.
Okay.
That's about it.
The 3.5% is for the unrestricted general government aid, and before people get up and dance around, problem solved, that represents about $69,000. So.
Yeah.
Even those 3.5%, we don't always get at the end of the day, because they give and take. So you got to see what the school gets and what the town gets, and see what the actual number is.
Yeah, the numbers are always not
Yes,
what they appear to be.
They're skewed.
Do you have any liaison reports?
No, I'll wait. I already made everybody wait. Let's move on.
Okay. I guess that's it for liaison and initiative reports. I don't really have anything.
Bills.
Yep, we've got minutes from January 9th and January 16th, 2018.
Okay, first one. Make a motion to accept the minutes of January 9th, 2018. Everybody was present.
Second.
Okay, motion to accept the minutes by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Tropiano. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, it's unanimous, 400.
Okay, next is to accept the minutes of January 16th, 2018. Present, let's see.
Four of us were present.
Four of us are present.
Second.
Okay, motion to accept by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Scasiotti. And all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, 400. And one more, we're gonna have to, Attorney Bowen's not here, so of course we have a bill from him, so we can't tease him about it.
Nope. Motion to pay the bill as submitted by town council for the sum of $15,416,
Second.
67 cents for the professional services from 12/21/17 to 1/20/18.
Okay, motion by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Tropiano. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, 400. It's unanimous. Anything else? Are we good?
We're good.
We're good. Motion to adjourn.
Glad I could make it.
Glad you could too. That's
Nice
why
to
I was
see you
texting
again.
you to stay home. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn and a
Second.
second by Selectman Tropiano. It's non-debatable.
That's
This is one instance I kind of regret it, because I'd like to make him sit here a little longer, but I can't. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, 400. Thank you and good night, Wareham.
We took the back way home.